Well, welcome back, everyone. We are so very honored to be screening this wonderful film at the DocLands Documentary Film Festival this year. And just want everyone to know that this film had its premiere at the Environmental Film Festival at the nation's capital, very prestigious festival. And that's where it won the Audience Award for Best Feature. And it's now begun its journey on the film festival circuit. And so we're glad to be able to be sharing it with you. And also I wanted to mention before I start off that the Inhabitants is being included in the DocLands educational film program. And that's where high school students from around the country will be able to tune in to this powerful documentary. Well, welcome. I want to welcome you all back, Costa and Anna and Ben. So let's jump right in. How did this filmic journey begin? How did you come together as collaborators, and what was the process?
Yeah, so thanks, Kelly, so much for having us. The early stages of the film really began in 2018. I was working under a grant of the United States Department of Agriculture, doing climate research with tribes in the Southwest. And through that work, I got to attend a lot of academic conferences, which are really unique spaces where government agencies like the USDA or the Environmental Protection Agency get together with state, local, and tribal governments, as well as different, public and private sector representatives. And we all talk about climate change and what the solutions to climate change are. And what became really clear at these conferences was that Native land stewardship practices were not getting enough credit, recognition, or support in the broader climate change conversation. So that through conversations at these conferences was where the idea for the film emerged to what if we could create a feature-length documentary that highlighted just a few examples of Native-led stewardship practices that are across the country and in Hawaii that were exclusively told by the Native people themselves, not on the fringe as just one voice in a larger piece, but as the central voice in the piece. So that was when Costa, my partner, came on, who had already been a filmmaker, and he started advising on the production process.
And Costa, you had already made a film similar to this topic, right?
Yeah, the first film I worked on was about permaculture and kind of the regenerative farming movement. And a big part of that movement gives a lot of its respect and voices a lot of interest in Native wisdom and Native guidance, but doesn't necessarily give a lot of visibility and a lot of space for Native people to be part of that movement. And I kind of realized that, through making that film, I saw more and more the need for, something that's really important is just this lack of Native guidance in these spaces. So, when Anna talked to me, in 2018, and we started to work with these tribal leaders, like how could we help document? From there, we basically set up a shooting schedule of like, all right, well, we're going to travel around and visit some of these projects and mostly capture on the ground footage of kind of what these projects look like in action. And that was kind of our first step. And, as outsiders looking in, we quickly realized that you can't just see what's happening now to really understand it. You really need to look at the history of land use and how colonization affected land use. So the next step was like collecting archival photographs and asking folks about archival footage and kind of how do we tell that historical piece of it as well. And then I think for us, like the last piece of it was kind of this realization, and also from doing my first project of, this buzzword that these practices are called Native solutions, and although they are Native solutions, that buzzword you easily skip over kind of a deeper story, which is that these are Native practices that were disrupted. So as much as they are solutions, they're also like very, very, very old ways of living in this place, and their disruption is a big part of why climate change has happened. So so for us, it was learning a lot and shifting our own understanding of the history and trying to help tell that story in a new way.
So a lot of research went into this before the film even started, right?
Yeah. Do you want to speak to that? Yeah, I mean, so, as Anna said, a lot of the folks we met were already in these conference spaces giving a lot of presentations about these issues and really excited to share a lot of these stories. So, we were fortunate to connect with film subjects who, had a lot of interest and in telling their story, had a lot of reasons for wanting to get more funding, whether it be for bringing back bison populations or getting more funding for prescribed burning. So we had a great opportunity to work with people who had a lot ready to go and a lot to tell and a lot to show. So I think we were really fortunate for the timing to be part of helping them tell their story.
Yeah. And you looked at several tribes from all across the country, including Hawaii. So how did you choose which particular stories to focus on, and how were you accepted into their communities?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And again, I think, Anna met a few key people within the conference circuit, people who were really interested in putting themselves out there. So I think that was probably the first kind of process for us, is like, okay, these are folks who like really want to get their message out there. So they're very receptive to people coming and filming and documenting, because a lot of people are, not necessarily interested in doing that, so that was kind of the beginning of the process. But then there was also, we kind of had this collective understanding that we really want to make something that people can relate to no matter where they live in the country. So part of this focus was looking at these different bioregions that kind of represent the 5 big bioregions across the country. The eastern forests, the plains, the southwest deserts, and then kind of the dry coast of the west, and then the coastal communities of Hawaii. So looking at kind of those bioregions is kind of how we honed in. But yeah, do you want to speak to that second part of your question? Was kind of gaining trust and
Yeah.
Yeah, gaining trust is something that I think what I heard at the conference space too was like, if you want to see what we're doing, just show up and try to make a relationship in a way that is real and authentic. And by showing up, the first time, it was really great because we got to kind of meet the people that we already knew and see if there was more people that we could interview. But then I think most of our footage actually came from the second time that we came back to places, not just showing up once and extracting what you needed and leaving and never coming back, but coming back again and making that relationship reinforced with trust.
Yeah. And how long?
Yeah, and I would say, just add on to that, we're in a long process of understanding what it means to be an ally to Native communities. And Ben Alex is also on this call, and he's a producer of the film. And he, as a Native filmmaker, he deals with a lot of these same issues of kind of across the board. How do you work together? So, I'd love to hear from him a little bit about that process too of, allyship and building trust, and maybe, his experience on that as well.
Yeah, Ben, wanted to ask you a question about how is the narrative around Native American issues shifting in today's culture, and how is documentary film a part of that effort? We get several more Native American films submitted to the film festivals, and so there is something going on. Can you speak more to that?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me here and speaking. So, yeah, I mean, the truth and reality is, Native people have a unique sovereign relationship with the U.S. government. We have always been working hand in hand with different organizations, with the U.S. government, with the Forest Service, with Fish and Wildlife. There's a symbiotic relationship that Indigenous people have had with the people who are making are on the front lines of these conversations that have to deal with climate change and some of these the degradation of American wildlife and land and so there's been years and years of this, decades of this relationship, hundreds of years of this relationship, and now you're starting to see filmmakers, connect the dots and bring these indigenous stories along. Either we're creating the stories or we're working with allies to help continue to raise awareness around some of these really important issues. So, I think that it's now becoming more visible. 5 years ago, I was on the front lines of Standing Rock for almost 5 months, working with multiple teams, disseminating news from everywhere, from Viceland to AJ Plus to The Guardian. It was a really interesting time to work with other filmmakers, and it was a stomping ground for all of the creative people who wanted to join forces and really start talking about allyship and what it means to have a collective hive of consciousness that brings new stories to the front. And just luckily, this is another one of those stories that I truly believe honors Indigenous people. It really tells the story the way that the subjects of the film would want to be represented. And it ties into the larger conversation of what I like to call globally Indigenous consciousness. We are all from this earth, and we have a shared responsibility to make sure that we're changing the direction for our children and their children who don't have a voice yet, who can't be powerful in these spaces. And so native documentary and native film in general is something that's emerging, and it's very exciting. And you don't have to fully be native to participate. It's just more of like we're changing the narrative, and so we're working together with our allies to make sure that our stories and ideas are out there.
Wonderful. And you had a lot of help on this. Can you tell us a little bit more about your tribal advisory board?
Yeah, so when we first started this project, we started to learn a bit more about, when you are documenting a Native community, do you want to check in about, who do we want to make sure can see the film, and in the editing process, how can we make sure that we're following, and ensuring that this is the story that's beneficial to the community. A lot of the stories that we filmed have gotten coverage in the past couple of years with a lot of media outlets, a lot of news outlets, and there's not necessarily always a positive experience with a lot of communities. Stories are misinterpreted or kind of told in a negative light, or just in a light that doesn't necessarily help the cause. It was, for us, it was really a crash course in how do you do collaborative filmmaking, in a sense of like, how does the story, what are the best pieces to tell the story, and who should we talk to, and then who can watch this, when we have an edit together, and who can give feedback. So we developed a tribal advisory board, essentially with one person from each of the 5 stories to kind of ensure that, we're meeting all those goals with the community.
Yeah, and just to add on also that that the stories are being told accurately. I think that something that can happen a lot is that you get a lot of information together, and then you deliver it in such a way that even if the information is technically like factual, it isn't an accurate portrayal. And we had to get approval that everything was accurately being depicted, because we want it to be as honest as possible.
So I'll also just say, the Karnuk tribe has developed a really awesome way of dealing with media, in terms of outside media being recorded. They have a protocol now where if you can come and film, and you have to get approval, and if you do, they ask you that you copy everything you've documented into their hard drives. And so all the interviews we shot there and everything, was left with them as an archive, because, a lot of issues in the past, and, Ben could speak to this really well, is this, archiving Native communities, but taking those archives away has been a big issue, even with like the Smithsonian. And there's still issues that are happening with, original photographs are still in museums. A lot of pieces of history aren't, with those communities. So the Karnuk tribe has a really interesting process for that. And, hopefully we could see, that kind of protocol, being more of that within filmmaking.
Yeah, can you speak more to that, Ben?
Yeah, sure. I think that the first documentary, right, was about non-native people observing native people, and from this foundation of what we considered, historical documentary filmmaking, we see a pattern of an erasure of indigenous voices and value systems, or repositioning value systems to make them seem more appealing to an audience that doesn't come from a community. And in the case of indigenous tribes and the reservations where we're from, our leadership is sometimes unable to see, how detrimental these copyright infringements can be, or we are still organizing to be more powerful, in a sense that we want to collaborate, but we don't want to lose these identities, and we don't want to lose these interviews with elders who might pass on. So we want to find a holistic way to kind of heal that pattern that can be, some museums and some other organizations that have been designed over the last hundreds of years, 100 years. I don't know, let's throw 100 years out there. I think pop culture is fast, and we don't really quite understand what the damage is, to our storytelling or the environment or anything else. We're kind of paying the bill for our grandparents' mistakes and the infrastructures they've built. And we want to be sure that in this new iteration of 21st century American design, that we're working as filmmakers to help fill the glass for indigenous people in their communities, as well as share the stories. So it's more about creating a world where we're giving and also, contributing to future generations. And it may seem cliche. I mean, I know these are the kind of things that come out of a lot of people's mouths, but I think, in this situation, that methodology is a good model for moving forward with allyships in Indian country, and allowing the tribes to have some sort of ownership of their tribal members' stories, as well as sharing them broadly, like in this case with DocLands.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I wanted to, I was wondering, is this completely funded by the government, or how I guess making documentaries are always challenging. So I was wondering, how were you able to fund this film?
Yeah, so we were really fortunate to work with the Calliope Foundation. They're a nonprofit foundation based out of California, and they fund a lot of amazing projects that mostly centered around Native stories and trying to uplift Native voices and communities. And then a part of the project is also funded on Kickstarter, which is crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is a really amazing tool. There's a great, the analogy I love is crowdfunding is kind of like crowd surfing. You don't want to crowd surf if there's 1-2 people in the audience, but if there's thousands of hundreds of people, you feel, it's a lot better to spread that weight out, so crowdfunding is a great way also. So you're not dependent on just one source, and you also it's a way to have more of a grassroots support. So yeah, I think, filmmakers who are interested in looking to, do projects like this should definitely look for, the support from crowdfunding, but also from grants, from foundations that want to support you and who also tap you into bigger networks of, a lot of influential and interesting and powerful and, all types of people that, also want to help share the stories.
So it's been successful.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is our second film festival, so, success is gauged in so many ways. And, part of, our relationship with Ben is his deep experience in impact campaigns. And you know, the goal in making this film is really for the impact campaign, which is we're just kicking off in June. It's basically a 6-month period where we're going to have free screenings, and we're going to distribute the film to Native schools and institutions, and also environmental organizations, you know, across the country, and kind of really push a big educational kind of angle on how do we get this into classrooms, and how do we get this in front of people who might inspire. So, you know, the success will, you know, come from that, you know, that impact side of it. And but yeah, Ben is a master impact man, so we're so lucky to be, you know, working with him. And it's a really new kind of new science, and a new evolving art too. So it's, you know,
Definitely. It's a whole new world in distribution.
Yeah.
So good job, Ben. And I just was, so it sounds like there's a good project in place in getting this out to people. But I guess the big question is, a lot of people who have seen this in the festival are going to say, okay, I want to share this. How can they, you know, where do they tell them to see it?
Yeah, so if you go to our website, Inhabitants Film, we'll have a continuous posting of screening opportunities over the next 6 months. Most of them are going to be free. And then in November, we'll be launching the film publicly, that anyone can rent it and watch it online. But in the next 6 months, you know, part of this impact campaign, definitely keep an eye out on our website and social media, because we'll be having, you know, many events. And a lot of the events we're going to be bringing on film subjects for these panels. So yeah,
Great.
we're definitely going to be doing a big push in kind of this virtual era right now.
And there's definitely an educational component to this too, right? To get it out into the schools.
Yeah, so part of, you know, we're going to be releasing this summer is an educational guide as well. So that will have more, you know, background research and discussion guide and questions and things like that to be helpful in the school setting.
Well, I know that you've got your hands full right now, but I always ask this question in the Q&As is, what are there any future projects in the works, something that you're looking into developing?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, me and Anna have talked about how do we evolve this project, and how do we, you know, help pass the mic in a sense of, you know, how do we help Native communities tell their own stories, and how do we be part of that effort and kind of, you know, shift, you know, just people showing up and documenting, and how do we get more maybe cameras into the hands of people who could tell their own stories. And, you know, we've been talking a bit with Ben about this idea of, you know, how do we potentially create a project out of this project, you know, and evolve a little bit more of a, you know, a user generated media in the sense that, you know, instead of just filming folks, it's like, how do we give them tools to document the stuff that they're doing, and, you know, how do we help them share that? And yeah, Ben could speak to a little bit kind of, you know, this idea of, you know, getting more cameras into people's hands as a way to help, you know, democratize storytelling more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful statement. That's why I really appreciate working with these filmmakers. You know, I call it, you know, I call it the Trinity. You know, you have there's 3 things that aren't going away in our lifetime, and that's you know, the internet, you know, people's love for video, and climate change. Those are all aspects of the world that that we are always going to have those 3 things moving forward. And in the spirit of what has been created, this project, it opens the door for many tribes, organizations, and individuals who are working diligently around the clock to try and reverse climate change, and to find a better way to, you know, find inspiration from indigenous, you know, practices, and to collaborate. And it's an ugly, messy world, but we've inherited that as well. So we're just trying to find the best ways to set examples and build new models moving forward that integrate the best practices of what we've known from the past, and reimagining a future that I think will be very inviting to young filmmakers and other creatives who want to join on this, you know, crazy journey of saving the world. which you know, is the best hero story of all.
Yeah, I agree. And in this crazy world we're living in, this is ripe for reinvention. And it sounds like you're doing it. Thank you all. Thank you so much for making this film. And thank you for joining us at the DocLands Film Festival. And looking forward to seeing your film out there in the world.
Thanks for sharing the film. Yeah, it means a lot.
Thank you.